And that brings us to Ted Seifried, Zaner Ag Hedge. Ted, what do you got for us?
Well, Scott, I'm sure you guys are talking about the Ag Outlook Forums numbers, and they're certainly interesting. I will say I don't feel like the market really puts a whole lot of stock into them. We know this is a very, very early estimate. It is not, it's not really objective. It's just statistical analysis. But the fact of the matter, Scott, is that we are looking at some really rather big numbers, and it's a bit sobering. And I think, again, not a surprise to the market. We've been kind of trading these thoughts for a little while now. But, just a couple of interesting tidbits, looking for a pretty sizable reduction in corn acres, 3.6 million, looking for a corresponding increase in soybean acres. I think that's a pretty common thought in the trade. And again, you're looking at some really rather big carryover numbers. I think one of the most interesting things for me, and maybe one of the most concerning things for me, is that we're looking at the potential for a 435 million bushel carryover in soybeans.
Ouch.
But that's even with a 155 million bushel increase in exports from one year to the next. And I hope they're right about that, Scott. I really do. But I think I've expressed it many times. I'm very concerned that there is a shift in demand happening in China. Again, I think they're moving their feed ration a lot more aggressively to corn. We could be looking at the first major decline in Chinese soybean demand that we've seen in really all of our careers. We've just come to expect that it's going to be constant or higher year after year after year. And this might be a different animal, Scott. And so, again, you have to take all these very early estimates with a grain of salt. But the picture it paints is not a rosy one. And certainly things can change. We've seen many times how, yields fall short, demand impresses or surprises. And I mean, predicting the future, right? It's all, up for debate, and we won't know until we know. But, again, these are some very big numbers. In the meantime, we had export sales, as you mentioned. Man, this is 4 weeks in a row now where soybean sales have been really poor. At a time of year where you really want them to be better, need them to be better. The USDA just cut our soybean exports for this marketing year by 35 million bushels. And unless we can string together some much better weeks, something with a 1 in front of it,
right,
million plus, it's going to be hard to justify, or it's going to be hard not to justify further cuts in our soybean exports and an even bigger beginning stocks number for that next year's balance sheet.
There we go. Lifts a little bit of a better board. April up $1.12 to 85.65. And let's get back to our guest analyst, Ted. I saved about 45 seconds for you. What do you got for us when it comes to the livestock?
Well, really quickly on hogs, Scott, they are really embracing the crazy Ivan persona, which, by the way, that is a technical term of really not knowing where it's going. As far as the live cattle are concerned, and feeders, cattle complex, we've been talking about the feeders being due for a technical correction for quite a long time now. Ever since putting that V bottom low in that we had in December 6th, we've been kind of just straight higher. It's healthy for a market to have a correction. That correction, I think, has been triggered by longer-term concerns about demand. When we saw that CPI number come in hot, the immediate thought the market had was the Fed's not going to be able to lower rates anytime soon. Those cuts that we were talking about at the end of last year, probably not happening. And, you worry that eventually that maybe cuts into consumer demand. But in the meantime, you look at the stock market turn around and rip higher once again.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care. They want to cut.
Feel like that demand is going to be there longer term.
All right, great stuff. Have fun with your son. Thank you very much for being on the show. That's Ted Seifried, Zaner Ag Hedge. He's outside of United Center watching his kid play hockey.